I mean, it doesn't really matter. Either we're tightening them next turn or we're not. I'll just play out the forest here. I really hope they don't have the discard spell, but even if they do, we could still top deck a Titan or a Summoner's Pact. Alright guys, we are here for the 5th and final match with the list that you see on screen. Last match, we just got completely stomped by Blue-Red Prowess with Alpine Moons and Blood Moons, so if you want to see me die inside a little bit, then go check out match 4, but we're here for match 5, and with that, I'll see you guys in the games. Please, not another Blood Moon deck. No Blood Moons and Alpine Moons, not this time. Thank you very much. Alrighty, let's hop in here. On the play, of course. Does it work? Can we make it happen? Boom! On the play. See, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. Playing against Kyle. Got a turn 1 Amulet hand. We got the bounce land to go with, and we got Saga. So this is like a turn 3 Titan with double Amulet. I mean, we're playing against a Lurrus deck, so they probably have discard, but thankfully we happen to be on the play, so turn 1 Amulet will get out from underneath our opponent's discard, and then we can just top deck a Titan after that, so we're going to try it. If I absolutely have to, I'm more than willing to play bounce land on turn 2, activate Saga, and then pick up the Saga, just so that we have threats and things to do, depending on if our opponent leads on a discard spell or not. They might just lead on a 1-drop here, in all honesty. I guess the worst case scenario is that we're playing against Mill. Every time I see a Lurrus deck, I'm always thinking of like black-red Lurrus. But it could be Hammer Time. It could also be Mill. I really hope it's not Mill. Now they're going to play turn 1 Dark Slick Shores. Alright, just show it to us, opponent. We know you got it. Dark Slick Shores, here we go. They're thinking about the sequencing here, which means they probably have a Mishra's Bauble and they're trying to figure out when to do stuff with it. That, or they're trying to figure out, like, what their turn 1 looks like if they're playing, like, a Hammer Time deck. They could play, like, 3 or 4 cards here. Stomping Ground. Okay, so this is like a Jund Lurrus type deck, perhaps? Still very glad to have turn 1 Saga into Amulet in this matchup. We see DRC. Alright. Does not mean that our Titan is going to be good to go here, by the way. They could still Thoughtseize us this upcoming turn. But they have next turn to Thoughtseize us, and if they don't, then we probably just win, to be completely honest. So, there's that. I mean, clearly they're playing Lurrus for the white splash. They're playing Naya. That's what they're doing. Nah, I'm fully expecting discard spells here. If we wanted to play around something crazy, we could play Cavern Naming Giant, but I don't really see the reason to do that. I think I'd rather just get a Forest into play. Or even Misty Rainforest, perhaps. That produces an extra mana on our Titan turn, so we could leave a white floating with Sanctuary and haste off of Valakut Slayer's Stronghold. That wouldn't do lethal damage to our opponent, though, so... I mean, it doesn't really matter. Either we're tightening them next turn or we're not. I'll just play out the Forest here. I really hope they don't have the discard spell, but even if they do, we could still top deck a Titan or a Summoner's Pact. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to just yield through the turn here, as we can't cast Pact during their turn to avoid Inquisition, as we just die to our Pact Trigger, so... Yikes. They do have Verdant Catacombs as well, we see. Speaking of the devil. Here comes a black spell and a discard. Or, a black land and a discard, I mean. Please just play Kroxa. Play Kroxa. Tarfire tapping the black. Love it. Absolutely support that one. They could have... Oh, never mind. Okay, our opponent is just dead. Nice. I was going to say they could be holding up the Unholy Heat card, the one that would kill our Titan, but they're not, so what are we even worried about? There's nothing to be concerned about in the first place. Alright, so we'll play out Sanctuary here. Place some triggers on the stack. Float. Float. We'll pick up the Forest. We can afford to play an Azusa here, so I will. Why not? We'll play Growth Chamber. This actually lets us leave both white floating and haste off of Valakut and Slayer's Stronghold instead. Which, that's something that I like to do. So I don't see a reason not to. It might even let us haste with double Titan here if we really wanted to, but... Admittedly, I'm not expecting our opponent to have any 0 mana interaction for our Titan, so I'm just gonna go for 1 Titan and kill them and not showboat here. Although I kind of already showboated a little bit by playing the Azusa, but, you know, don't judge me. We could definitely get a second Titan into play and attack with it. Do you think we should? I think we should, actually. Unless our opponent conceded. Our opponent conceded. Cool. I'll take that, too. Don't need to showboat when your opponent just concedes the game. Gnarlwood Dryad, really. Interesting. Okay, so we're going to want Grazers against what our opponent's doing, probably. The Scouts are likely to just die. Relic seems very good if they're going all in on the Delirium thing. So does Endurance as well. Endurance seems quite good. And Bog, obviously. What do we not want? We could trim an Azusa. Actually, Azusa's good. I think we trim on Explorers first, because we may not have the time to be casting Explorer. Our opponent seems to be more aggressively oriented here. We can trim one pact, but no more. All the Cavernous Souls can go, probably. We can trim on Saga in case our opponent has Alpine Moon. I don't know that I love that. Although, admittedly, I don't really see anything else I want to cut. We could cut an Azusa, but Azusa could be very powerful in getting to Titan mana even without an Amulet. It makes it a very useful card for us. Maybe Grazer's not even that great. I don't hate the idea of trimming down to 2 Grazers, actually. Our opponent's aggressive, but it's not like our Royal Grazer's doing a whole lot of chump blocking here. Most of the times, it'll be blocking a 3/3 Dryad or a 3/3 DRC and just die, in which case it's not really that great. It does give us some sacrifice fodder, but I'm not expecting anything like Liliana of the Veil or Kaya's Guile or whatever, so not worried about that either. I think maybe Grazer's not that super strong. So we can trim down to 2. And then I'm going to trim 1 Saga just to hedge. Just in case they play those cheeky little Alpine Moons. Yep, and we'll submit. Is it possible we want the other 2 Explorers, or these Force of Vigors? Maybe. I don't know. Alpine Moon gets hit by explosives, so unless our opponent has literal Blood Moon, I'm pretty okay with leaving Force of Vigor in the board. Opponent on the play. We have turn 1 Amulet, assuming it doesn't get discarded. But even if it does, we have turn 1 Saga if we want it. And I think we might. We could even play turn 2 Saga here, actually, so I'm going to keep it. Turn 2 Saga wouldn't be too bad, because it would give us 2 chump blockers, and... well, or at least 1 chump blocker, because we'd probably be playing Azusa on turn 3, so... I'm willing to try it. If they lead on a turn 1 1-drop instead of taking Amulet, then this hand becomes even faster. So, yeah. And this is the type of hand that really detriments from not having access to an expedition map, because when we already have an Amulet out, quite possibly, then sacking Saga to get a map to set up a bounce land and go off that way could be quite valuable. But we don't really have that ability. Luckily, we already have a T-West, so if we absolutely need to transmute and we find a blue source to do so, then we can. But it's not always going to be the case. In fact, sometimes hands like these want to use map to set up a T-West to get access to Titan. So I actually think that despite the fact that this list is trying to move pretty fast, making room for 1 expedition map seems pretty easy to do, and I've found map to be quite useful. We draw explosives. We are going to want to play explosives on 1. I don't know if that means that I don't want to lead on this Amulet, though, and maybe it does. Or maybe it should, at least. We can play explosives on turn 3 and blow it up. Which doesn't seem that bad. We could just lead on a tap land here. Or we could lead on Saga. Leading on Saga is really bad against our opponent having Alpine Moon specifically. That's about it. We're not really planning on activating it to make a token anyways. I'm kind of inclined to just lead on, I guess, Garenbrig. Maybe Valakut, because the Garenbrig could enter untap later. I think I'm leading on Valakut. It could be wrong, but I think it's likely that we're going to want to be able to keep our Amulet in play after this explosives, so... and it doesn't really hurt us much if they just discard our explosives away and leave us with an Amulet, because then at least we have a clear route to getting to Titan. So, we just need to top deck a bounce land at that point, and then we'd be pretty much good to go. We could even play Talari West and a bounce land all in the same turn to float the double blue if we have 2 Amulets in play, to be able to transmute as well, so we wouldn't even necessarily need to draw exactly Growth Chamber. It would need to be a green bounce land, I suppose. Shocking. There's Gnarlwood Dryad again. For those of you who are not familiar, this is a 1-mana 1/1 with Death Touch. Gets +2/+2 as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So if they have Delirium, that is. They're playing all the Delirium 1-drops. We top deck the blue bounce land. That's nice. Huh. I mean, there's nothing we could really do here other than play Saga and pass, I suppose. Next turn, we could play... I mean, we could play Amulet into Azusa, into land, explosives on 1, blow it up. And kill our Amulet, but at least get a couple of lands into play and an Azusa as well. So I guess we're just playing Saga here and passing. We could play Amulet now. The next turn, we have bounce land, Azusa, bounce land, regular land, and that would leave us with 5 lands in play. I suppose we could try to save a Saga so we could have that as an untapped source and have 6 to cast Titan if we play the Amulet now. Assuming the Amulet survives. And if it doesn't, then I'm pretty okay with that. I'm just going to go ahead and throw the Amulet into play now. I don't see a reason not to. It also plays around our opponent having removal for a Saga. They draw with Peatland. Okay. They currently have instant land artifact. They surveilled Planeswalker. So they did make it to Delirium here, so we're taking 9. But I mean, we kind of just get to go off this turn, so not super worried about it. And now we can leave a lot of green mana in play for playing a Titan if we find it. Right, well, we'll go ahead and start by playing Growth Chamber out here. There might be a way to transmute Tolaria West this turn as well, actually, now I'm thinking about it. See, we pick this up, use the Saga to play Azusa, leave blue floating, play Growth Chamber. We would not be able to play and activate Disposal on 1 and also transmute, however. If we play Azusa, play land, bounce land, activate to make a chump blocker, take 3, go to 4. Well, we would be taking almost lethal if our opponent had a removal spell. Like, that would be lethal if our opponent had a removal spell and a bolt. That would put us to dead. I think we're supposed to pop Explosives on 1 here. So, we play Azusa, play land, Explosives on 1, blow it up. Next turn, we get to search for another Explosives with Saga, or even just a Relic. I think it's probably fine. I'm just going to leave the Growth Chamber in play. I think I'm off transmuting the Tolaria West, so... And there's no way to play our lands optimally here. We're going to end up with a trigger on the stack regardless, so whatever. We'll start with Garenbrig, I suppose. It worked. I guess it's just Saga. Yeah, Saga's fine. We're going to get a second Amulet this upcoming turn anyway, so if we top deck Titan, actually getting the Titan into play will be no big deal, since we can just have Sanctuary as a bounce land. I think we're supposed to just pop this now. Actually, I mean, I guess the only thing that our opponent could even potentially have here is, like, Golgari Charm to regenerate their stuff, which would be kind of annoying. They could have Swift Spear. I don't know. I'm not playing around it. I don't want to let them untap with DRC as well, because that gives them an extra scry with the ability, so I'm just going to do it and pass. See what our opponent's rebuild is here. Another DRC. Well, in our draw step, if we have not found Titan, we can just get Relic of Progenitus instead of Amulet off of our Saga, which really would not be the worst at all. Right, let's draw. T-West. Interesting. I think Relic might be the play, actually. Could activate... I think we activate, get Relic into play, play a T-West out. Yeah, I think this is fine. Our next Saga can get Amulet if we want it to. We'll go ahead and exile a card from their yard, but, I mean, it doesn't really do anything. And I guess we just play T-West so we can transmute the next one. We'll pass. And again, we want to pop this Relic during their turn because we could have popped it during our turn and drawn a card. And then not only would that card have been exposed to discard spells, but it also would have let our opponent cast some spells in their main phase here before attacks. to try to enable their channeler. So, not attacking with supplier, huh? I think we're supposed to pop relic and block. I don't want to just take the 3, so. Saga, okay. Yeah, we'll block. I guess with both. Sure. That seems fine. Actually, I guess blocking with both is just, like, strictly bad if our opponent can somehow enable Delirium again, because then we just lose both of our creatures for no value, so that might have been a bad play. Alright, well, our Saga's going off. See, we have... Oh, if we get Amulet, we basically just have Titan here, so... Yeah, not too hard here. We'll get Amulet. We'll play the Sanctuary as land number 1 for the turn. And since we... Oh, we're already yielded. That's nice. We'll float. We'll pick up the Growth Chamber. We'll play Growth Chamber. We'll float the blue. And pick up Tolaria West. We'll transmute. Activate Garenbrig, leaving the white floating. Pack for Titan. Haste it with Valakut and Slayer Stronghold. And we probably actually could even get Boros Garrison, play Boros Garrison as our 3rd land for the turn, and double strike it as well. But regardless, it didn't matter. Our opponent was dead there, so good on them for conceding. And, yeah, I mean, that was a pretty good showing for Relic as well. Obviously, against our opponent, who's basing their entire plan around Delirium, that's pretty good. And the Sources on 1 also kind of took away the show, so... Anyways, let me know what you think about this deck list. The only changes that I could really see are playing 1 map, and I think cutting the second Azusa makes sense. Just because you can't always rely on your Amulet to come through. Like, sometimes you sack a Saga to get an Amulet because you have no other choice, but you still don't have Titan, you don't have a bounce land in hand, perhaps, or something along those lines. Or you just want to be able to set up a Cavern or a Saga in a more controlling matchup, and you just want to get map. Like, you might think that the Expedition map is for looping Saga into Saga, and it can be used for that, but more often than not, and the main reason why I tend to include a map in my Saga lists, is because just at random, you'll find yourself needing a bounce land, or needing a Tolaria West, or whatever, you know what I mean? So, you can even map for things like Bajuka Bog if you really wanted to, and just naturally drawing the map, in my opinion, has actually been fantastic. Like, I've never been unhappy to have an Expedition map, except in my opening hand, maybe, but drawing it in the late game is still fine, because you just, like, crack it, get Valakut, and all of a sudden your Dryad's online, things like that. Like, map is never useless, so I think it's very free and pretty easy to play 1 Expedition map, so I would definitely make that change. And then, jury's still out on the Endurance. We literally never got to use it, not even a single time, and admittedly, I think that we don't necessarily need it, but perhaps I might keep testing the card just to see if it grows on me. Yeah, the other card that I think is somewhat questionable is maybe Pithing Needle, but I think being able to use it to name Asmarana Mardica Diced into Kuldakar. Let me try that one more time. Asmarana Mardica Diced into Kuldakar being the one real thing that I am actively interested in naming with Needle, because sometimes they can get a Pithing Needle before us, thanks to being on the play, and stop our explosives. That would usually be my main way to interact with them, so being able to just outright stop Asmarana Mardica Diced into Kuldakar would be very nice. Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, I can't really say I'd change a whole lot about this list. Maybe trying to squeeze a 4th Grazer in there somewhere. I don't know. Small potatoes. I could even see cutting a Cavern of Souls to get a Grazer in the main deck here and just adding the 4th one to the sideboard. That wouldn't be bad. Anyways, like I said, I'm curious to hear your all's feedback, so let me know what you thought about my playthrough with this list and what you would do with this list, any changes that you might make, your experiences with lists similar. And one other thing I will say, I guess, before I sign off here is just playing with Scout has not at all convinced me that Scout is the way to go. To be honest, it feels very similar to just playing with Grazer. There were some nice things that Scout did in this league, and I'm sure if you look back at some of the videos, you'll see. But in general, I think that Grazer's just fine, and it blocks better. It forces your opponent to use a bolt or a removal spell if they want to connect with their Ragavan, and that, I think, is very valuable. So if I were to play in any event in the upcoming future, I'd probably register 4 Grazers and 0 Soccer Tribe Scouts, but that's just me. Your mileage may vary, of course. So anyways, like I said, I will see you guys in the next league. I will not waste your time anymore. This is Redface Menace, signing off.